want to talk about life and death tonight, and perhaps a bit more about death. Not a very popular topic, and one that I'm not very comfortable with. Um, at the end of each of our sesshin days, we chant the evening gatha, and most of you know this. And it goes, "Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by, and opportunity is lost. Each of us should strive to awaken. Awaken, take heed. Do not squander your lives." This exhortation wakes me up and it reminds me of the very most fundamental issue that we face. As we say, and I think Ehe Dogen said, the great matter of life and death. As far as I know, I did not choose to be born, let alone I did not choose where or when I would be born or into which circumstances. Why was I born in Washington State in the United States in the 1950s to middle-class parents instead of in Chittagong, Bangladesh, or Syria? I have no idea. And I feel certain that I will not choose the time and the place and the conditions of my death. All I know is that it's inevitable. And these days, it's sooner than it used to be. When I was younger, I had the luxury of successfully keeping this reality out of my mind, out of my view. I don't know that I was heavily into denial, but I conveniently really didn't spend much time thinking about it. It wasn't comfortable. And as I get older, that's harder to do. And I'm drawn not to deny that death is closer, not to encourage it to come any sooner than it's supposed to, but to embrace it as it will happen naturally and try to understand it, try to make peace with it. I'm a poor musician, but I think a great appreciator of music. And just this year so far, in just a little over 60 days, has been a tough one for my musical heroes. We lost Jeff Beck, Burt Bacharach, Wayne Shorter, David Crosby, David Lindley, and more. My wife Sandy asked me why I dwell on these passings. Why would I cry when Crosby died when I never knew him? She had a good question, and I didn't have an immediate answer. On one level, I could say because I love music, I do know these people, but it's not that. It's more than that. Maybe it has to do with death. Maybe I'm more at peace with the idea of it. It's occurring more with my contemporaries. Maybe I want to be more at peace with it. As mammals, we naturally will fight hard to stay alive. Letting our essence slip away or our breath expire or letting our life go, it's not our nature. We fight. We fight to the death, as they say. But in Zen practice, we face what is called the Great Death. while we remain alive. What might that mean? What is the great death? The poet, beat poet, Zenshin Philip Whalen, one of my favorite poets, at the time, I think this was back in the 80s, he said this. He was then the abbot of the Hartford Street Zen Center. And he said, life and death, that's what it's really about. We live in the midst of dying, and we die in the midst of living. We go through our lives picking up all kinds of things and calling it me. We become very fond of this creation, life and inanimate matter all glued together. And he continued, it's very real when we watch friends fade and perish. Very difficult because we want to keep things as they are. But unless you experience your own death, you are lost. Really get close to it. What we are actually doing is dying all the time. Dying is an action. Ask yourself, who is living? Who is dying? And when you go to the Zendo, ask, why am I here? One of my favorite Dharma books is, and you've heard me quote from this many times before, Appreciate Your Life by Maezumi Roshi. And he had a short piece called The Life and Death of This Moment. And he expands on what Whalen said. He said, one understanding of life and death is the life and death of the instant. According to Dogen Zenji, the founder of Japanese Soto Zen, Shakyamuni Buddha said that in 24 hours, and I'm always taken with these numbers that come out of Buddhist practice. They always make me smile. I don't know if they're approximations or if they're calculations. Shakyamuni Buddha said that in 24 hours, our life is born and dying, rising and falling, 6,400,099,980 times. That's a lot in one 24-hour period. So in 1 second of our life, Maezumi Roshi said, is born and dies around 70,000 times each second. Our conscious mind cannot even imagine such an occurrence. What kind of life is this? We think of our life as 50 years, 60 years, maybe the most around 100 years. Dogen Zenji said that living a long life without awareness is almost a crime. On the contrary, he emphasized that even if you live one day with a clear understanding of what life is, the value of that one life, of that one day, is equal to many, many years of living without awareness. We are also concerned with how long we will live. This is still Maezumi Roshi talking. We feel that living 80, 90, or 100 years is a wonderful life. Maybe so. But wonderful compared with what? Compared with those who die young? We must see our life clearly. The existence of this life at this very moment. What is it? Being born and dying 6,000 or 7,000 times, being born and dying at this very moment. What is it? Is such a life different for a man, a woman, a young person, an old person, a human being, or other beings? Is such a life dualistic? Is it relative or absolute? All our usual considerations and understanding about what life is make no sense if we are born and we are dying 7,000 times in an instant. Recently, Kyoto Sensei talked about how phenomena appear and disappear in our lives. He shared this diagram called the time wave, and he talked about everything following this cycle of arising, persisting, passing, and then returning to emptiness. I don't recall him saying 70,000 times a second, but it was a lot. It's a circular diagram that begins with arising, and the subtext is let come, persisting, let be, passing, let go, and emptiness, let not be. And Sensei made the point that this is happening perhaps 70,000 times a second. It's happening all the time, and it's really all that's happening. Let's take 1 minute and be still together. I can't say that I noticed in a minute what would be over 4 million times, according to Dogen and Maezumi Roshi. So about this being born and dying, arising, enduring, passing, I'm only left with questions. What does it mean to be born and die so many times in an instant? How do I live with this? Am I ever really, truly alive or dead, or is it both? And then what's going on when my body actually finally does die? Do I go on being born and dying thereafter? I haven't any answers for these questions. I keep asking them. But I do have enduring faith in our practice. And I just go back to it over and over and over again. Receive numberless creations. Experience omnipresent Dharma gates. Be as still as a stone and open to every moment. Let go of all my ideas, especially those about myself. Do the next thing with an open and quiet mind and a soft heart. There's another nice quote here I want to share with you. In 2018, Zenke Blanche Hartman, who had the distinction of being the first female abbot of San Francisco Zen Center, offered these words on how to live if you're going to die. I love that she put "if" in the title. She said, I came to practice because I discovered that I was going to die. Me personally. I just had never considered it before, but then my best friend, who was my age and had kids the age of my kids, had a headache one night when we were together. And it was such a bad headache that she went to the doctor the next morning. She was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, went into a coma, and died. Whoosh, just like that. Maybe a month altogether from the first headache. That could have been me. I'm going to die. But my next thought was, how do you live if you know you're going to die? It has been such a gift to me that question came up. And so I started looking for who could tell me how to live if I know I'm going to die. And I do know I'm going to die. So I'll just share with you these 5 daily recollections that came from a sutra from the Buddha. And she shared these recollections. I'm of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape having ill health. I'm of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everything I have and everything I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape from losing them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. And Blanche said, these 5 daily recollections seem to be, for me, some clue as to how to live if you know you're going to die. Pay attention to how you live. Pay attention to your actions. Are your actions kind? Are your actions honest? Are your actions supported by the desire to help beings, to benefit beings? Are your actions selfish or generous? How are you living this life? I want to end with, again, somebody else's words, and maybe to lighten this up a little bit. This is a dark topic, but this is one of my favorite poems. Allen Ginsberg wrote this on the subway in New York City in 1975, and it's called Gospel Noble Truths, and some of you probably know this. He also turned it into a song that he plays and accompanies himself on harmonium. Born in this world, you got to suffer. Everything changes. You got no soul. Try to be gay, ignorant, happy. You get the blues. You eat jelly roll. This is one way you take the high road. In your big wheel, 8 steps you fly. Look at the view. Right to horizon. Talk to the sky. Act act like you talk. Work like the sun. Shine in your heaven. See what you done. Come down and walk. Sit. You sit down. Breathe when you breathe. Lie down. You lie down. Walk where you walk. Talk when you talk. Cry when you cry. Lie down. You lie down. Die when you die. Look when you look. Hear what you hear. Taste what you taste here. Smell what you smell. Touch what you touch. Think what you think. Let go, let it go, slow. Earth, heaven, and hell. Die when you die. Die when you die. Lie down, you lie down. Die when you die. Thank you for listening.